Okay. All right. Thanks for everyone for joining. You know, there's so many events, and yet you chose to join our panel, so I'm really happy for that. Show of hands, who's building in the space of like stable coins, trying to bridge DeFi and TradFi? No. Okay. No worries. Okay, so we'll begin now with just a round of introductions, all right? So the theme of this is not just OpenFi or open finance, but literally the topic of being open source. So just want to highlight that focus here. So let's see to what extent, you know, all our panelists here, our projects are actually open source and the challenges along the way as well. Okay, so maybe before I begin the questions, maybe Jackson, you can start off with introductions and we'll go down the whole stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackson Esposette here. I lead our ecosystem partnerships team, partner management team at Circle. Circle is a global financial technology firm founded in 2013. So we've been in the space for quite a while. You know, we obviously look to I would say our core mission, for those of you that aren't familiar, is to increase global prosperity through the frictionless exchange of value. It's a pretty broad mission. We do that through a series of products and services. Most of you obviously are probably familiar with USDC, which is oftentimes what we lead with. We also have a Euro-backed stablecoin, EURC. It's MiCA compliant that we issue out of Europe. And we have a suite of products and services that kind of support builders in the space that want to build and create utility around those stablecoins. Yeah, and I'd say specifically, I work, my team works with our Web3, you know, kind of native ecosystem partners, all of our blockchain partners that are crucial to our ecosystem, and then many of our protocols as well that heavily integrate with USDC and our other services.
Great. Okay, Vikram, over to you.
Yeah, hey everybody, good to be here. My name is Vikram. I'm one of the co-founders of Superform. We're a marketplace for financial products. Most people come to Superform to earn yield. Stablecoins is probably the biggest thing they look to earn yield on, and USDC is a big part of that. We're built on top of interoperability infrastructure, so we work with Wormhole on some of our stuff to provide you know, chain abstraction and the ability to use any asset from any chain. But we're just focused on making on-chain UX easier and better for people so that people can actually use all the cool products that we've made and built over the last few years. And yeah, on the open source element, excited to talk about some of that stuff, and particularly how I think this financial layer is going to be powering everything really in the back end. And help, you know, a lot of new people on board to financial services.
Hi, my name is Axel, co-founder and CEO of Kulipa. We are a crypto card issuer, so we issue Visa or MasterCard cards depending on the region, and we do that as a white label product for the wallets. So, for example, we're going to launch very soon tonight the card with Argent. It's going to be Argent branded fully. And the goal is to make it, I mean, fulfill one of the promises of crypto, which was payment, which is so far has been quite slow to pick up because of all of the frictions around UX. And we decided to that the card was so natural for people to pay that it was a good combination to take the TradFi side of payment and combine it with the efficiency of the blockchain, and that's what we did.
Hey everyone, my name is Nikhil. I lead product at the Wormhole Foundation. Wormhole is one of the leading interoperability protocols. We connect over 40 blockchains, 6 different VMs, have processed over 1 billion messages, and we just crossed actually recently, which is really exciting, around 50 billion in volume, dollars in volume processed. And Wormhole is ultimately a platform for developers and protocols to build applications that can access the entire crypto ecosystem, so all the liquidity in crypto and all the users in crypto very seamlessly. In terms of open source, Wormhole is completely open source. Every line of code that Wormhole contributors write for the protocol is open source, and it's one of the things that we greatly pride ourselves on.
Okay, and just to introduce myself as well, so that you have just some context as to why I'm here. So my name is Sharon, founder of Headquarters. We are a business crypto neobank. So there's a lot of programs out there, like the Argent Card coming out that's consumer focused. Ours is around the businesses, so serving fellow builders in the space. In my former life, I was part of the founding team of Singapore's stablecoin. And on that topic of open source, so just to Jackson, just let you know, actually part of the company I was at, the Singapore stablecoin called StraightSex, Circle being open source for the minting and redemption contract actually did benefit us over on the other side of the world in Singapore. We did take reference to it. We edited it to comply to regulations back home. Right, so I think maybe you can share, I think everyone here on the panel kind of transacts between being 100% DeFi, and some of you are in the intersection of TradFi and DeFi, right? So there's only a certain extent that maybe perhaps you can be open source. This question is really just open for anyone to kind of take this, rather actually maybe I can rephrase it. Who here is like 100% open source, your stack? Yeah, I think Wormhole probably is as well. Superform maybe to a certain extent as well. Whereas I think for Kulipa and Circle, only to a certain extent, right? So maybe more question for Wormhole, Nikhil. To what extent, given the fact that you're 100% open source so far, your leading product, like, what has been the benefit so far that made it, that you guys can sustain and continue being 100% open source?
Yeah, I think, so you mentioned being the sort of spectrum between being all the way on DeFi and all the way on TradFi. And Wormhole is a DeFi protocol, like our smart contracts are deployed on chain, we're fully open source, but we work with a lot of TradFi firms, we work with a lot of asset issuers, and it's one of the really exciting things that we're doing is we're helping bring a lot of assets on chain. So, BlackRock, Securitize, they're working with us, new stablecoin issuers are working with us to bring new stablecoins on chain, RWA protocols, and it's valuable for them because they can launch their tokens, their tokenized real-world assets, stablecoins, whatever have you, and they can immediately access the entire crypto ecosystem. Again, the main value prop of Wormhole. So like multi-chain is like a reality today. And one of the biggest or most important things for asset issuers who are coming to this space is trust and security. And being open source is core to trust and security. You can see that we're not going to rug you. You can see that the protocol is fully audited, and you can look at the lines of code of the protocol yourself. You can see that the contracts deployed on chain are verified and match the source code that you can build yourself from the open source repositories. And that's just like at the baseline of security. So I think there are lots of layers to building secure protocols that maybe we can get into later, but I think that at the very foundation of building trust and security is being open source, and it's what a lot of the crypto ecosystem is built on.
Maybe to add on to that, Vikram, this question is for you. Because given that you're a marketplace of various DeFi venues and stuff, you probably benefited from others being open source too. So maybe just walk us through their journey or to how that has helped.
Yeah. There's different degrees, I guess, of open source, right? At its core level, having code that anybody can read online is one bit of it, but also getting people to build a certain way is the other part of it, because a bunch of open source can create trust and security, but at the same time, that still is a lot of effort put onto the user to actually be able to do their own research and figure out, is this thing something I can trust? So like the next stage of that is building on top of things like standards, and in the Ethereum ecosystem we have stuff like ERC20, ERC721, we have vault standards like ERC4626 and 7540, and those kinds of like open source APIs really are really helpful so that people can build on top of each other, and rather than like trying to recreate the same thing kind of over and over again and maybe taking 2 steps back. But yeah, I mean, we're a marketplace where people can put those standardized vault products on us. And whenever the initial question on are we open source, I think we are open source in that you can see our contracts and everything that happens on chain, but there's so much information that a consumer app needs to be able to do that is not necessarily something that needs to be open source. It could be your front end. It could be like back-end services collecting data for this stuff. So I think entirely open source is the North Star, but there's so much stuff that we expect out of apps that there's a reason why, you know, Facebook and Twitter aren't open source, right? So.
All right, thanks. Let's talk maybe about the realities of how it's, I think you were kind of alluding to that not everything can be open source and there are limitations to it. Maybe just to flip away from the topic of product, but more on the commercial side. Ray Jackson, this question is for you. Like commercially, the one issue that people sometimes have with monetization of open source is that once you open source, you know, the thesis is that it might be hard to monetize. But Circle's an interesting position because you have chosen to open source certain key parts of your stack. Yeah, so, and Circle is actually now beyond stablecoins, like there's wallets and stuff. So I just want to see maybe just few points on how do you all balance monetization with retaining certain things being open source? Yeah.
That's a great question. I think, you know, to what you mentioned, like we aspire to open source everything that we can. At the end of the day, the open sourcing things is part of a virtuous cycle of you know, delivering back to the ecosystem. But I think when we look at monetization, and it's an interesting topic, like there's a lot that you could cover there. At the end of the day, there's a lot that goes into our products that isn't necessarily on chain. And so I think, yes, there can be issues with monetization. If you're an open source protocol, someone can copy paste your code and maybe put a new spin on it, or you know, have a branding play, sure. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of our edge comes from the types of partnerships that we're able to create around the product, the ecosystem we're able to build around the product, our brand value, and the trust that stands behind that. And then also because we sit at the intersection of traditional finance and decentralized finance, the partnerships and like the offerings that we're able to bring from the traditional world to the on-chain world, that's where a lot of our ability to monetize comes from. And so I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at whether or not open source takes away your edge, I actually think your edge comes from a much greater space. It comes from your reputation. It comes from the ecosystem you're able to create around your product.
Maybe Axel, you can actually continue from this as well.
Yeah, completely. So we have almost nothing open source, and that's mainly because, I mean, compared to a Wormhole who has to work with regulated entities who have to understand what they are dealing with, we are the regulated entity. So it's more that I mean, if there's a financial loss or if there's a bug, we are fully, I mean, it's going to be our loss. So we didn't really need to show anything of the engine that behind there. I mean, still, we are open in the sense that our service is fully API based, and people, I mean, we are helping the wallets build on top of what we do. But the fact that they don't, it's almost, they don't want to know exactly how things are. I mean, it's more like, okay, you're the regulated guys. We don't want to be regulated. They stay at arm's length because I mean, yeah, we are dealing with the traditional rails, and in that world, open source doesn't really exist and doesn't really, I mean, not a single of the TradFi equivalent of what we do is open source, and that's probably because you also, the more you expose your code, potentially the higher your, I mean, if there's a way to hack into your system, I mean, the fact that your code is open source potentially exposes you more. So it's a trade-off between showing so that the people can contribute and can help you improve your code, but also showing to the ones that are trying to damage you. And that's that. I mean, in our world, the regulators are not really keen on the openness of the code.
Okay, maybe just directly follow on to that question, Nikhil. So you start off with being that, fully open source at a smart contract level, and yours is kind of the flip side. Your customers are the regulated folks. How do you, on a security level, kind of convince them or assure them that it's okay, like it's okay to partner you?
Yeah, so we can talk more about now security and now, like how you build security into DeFi protocols. And I kind of like what Jackson had said earlier about like the permissionless of the crypto ecosystem, permissionlessness of the crypto ecosystem, which is that everyone is kind of building on each other. And that's something that I think is really important to crypto. And one of the reasons why open source is really important is because you can see the code that anyone can come in and build on top of Wormhole. Anyone can go in and build on top of Uniswap. Anyone can go in and build on top of protocol XYZ. And that's really important. And I think it's different from a regulated entity because that's one of the core bits of crypto. And that's why the industry can move so fast. That's why we can innovate so fast. And now, once that code is open source, Axel mentioned, the code can get hacked, protocols can get hacked, black hats can come in and try to attack. You can have a lot of malicious actors, so how do you actually secure that? And I think there's layers of security, and that's the approach that we take at Wormhole is like defense in depth. And what defense in depth means is it's like Voldemort has the 7 Horcruxes, and you have to destroy all the Horcruxes in order to kill Voldemort. And I think every single crypto protocol, and that's the stance we take at Wormhole, every single crypto protocol should have defense in depth measures so that it's not just you find an exploit in the code and you can exploit the protocol. It's that you have to do multiple things. You have to break multiple barriers to be able to exploit a protocol. And so at the foundation, I think it being open source, it being audited, well audited, having the audit reports be public, having a good bug bounty program to encourage white hat hackers to come in, so instead of black hat hackers, and then on top of the sort of code base being open source and all those foundational things, you have measures that you build into the protocol. So for example, Wormhole has, for token transfers, rate limits. It has global account balance accounting to make sure that you can't transfer more tokens out of a chain than the amount that's been transferred in. We allow asset issuers to have even more controls, like pausing the contracts, access controls, flexible verification, so they can add their own verifiers to the system. So there's like a lot of different layers of defense in depth that I think you can build into crypto protocols, and that's the stance we take.
Right. Okay, thanks. This is probably going to be the last question. Then we'll just open up the floor to any questions. I'm going to zoom out from just the panel focus on open source, but really more to why we're here, like open finance in general. If each of you can just give a closing remark on like your own plans on your projects to kind of further the movement of open finance, and take this question in whatever way of interpretation, whether it's by geography, by types of payment methods, etc. Yeah. So maybe Jackson, we can start with you first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so outside of kind of what we already talked about in terms of what elements, or I guess maybe we didn't talk about what elements of Circle are open source. So our token contracts, cross-chain transfer protocol is also open source, abbreviated as CCTP, heavily integrated into Wormhole. For example, allows you the ability to teleport our USDC rather between chains natively. We also have a suite of products that we call our Web3 services suite, building out a developer console and a developer ecosystem there that's very important to us to continue to get closer to builders in the space. And we have various SDKs within that suite that are also open source. So I think our plan and our focus will continue to be that any contract with that level of significance, like we just spoke about, will certainly strive to have that be open source. But then I think specifically within our Web3 services, that's where we're going to really continue developing and making a lot more ground. And so anything that we can continue to do to make it easier for builders to onboard into the space and experiment and try things out. For example, we have a smart contract platform with templated, audited smart contracts that people could take, whether it's to mint an NFT or simple DEX swap, templates to get started that are safe, that they can trust in and build on top of. That's really important to us. So I think many of our plans exist in continuing to make ground there. We also have a program called the Circle Alliance program. So really anyone that builds around with our products or around our products, USCC on down, you can go Google this, search it. It's quite easy to find and apply to be a part of that program. That program is where it's what we think of as our closest ecosystem and our biggest advocates in the space. And that's where we'll continue to develop, closely and get feedback from those people, so that we can figure out what to build next and ensure that we get feedback on these things as we release them. So yeah.
Yeah. Open Finance is really a great name for what we're building, because in a way, a lot of what we call DeFi is increasingly less decentralized and more open. And I think that's totally fine. And eventually we have open finance that can become decentralized again. But we have a lot of real assets coming on chain. Starting with stablecoins, going to be a lot more financial products that come on chain. Those will not necessarily be decentralized, but they definitely are going to be in this open finance ethos. There'll be verified contracts on chain. People can see what's going on. And I think that's the most exciting thing, honestly, happening in crypto right now. And I think in a bigger sense, it's like, what does all this open finance, what do these products get rolled up into? And I think it's just this programmable layer of money. We can not just store and transfer money, but we can earn on money too. And anybody that's writing code anywhere, if I'm a bank or if I'm just creating a new app somewhere, I'd rather create code that uses crypto than tries to plug into some bank somewhere and makes wires to do all this stuff. It's just like 10 times way more harder and way more steps than what we need. So yeah, I think that's like the promise of open finance and what is exciting for us as a space to build to. I know.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I mean 100% with you on the open side of things. And for me, one of the promises of open finance is also to open finance to more people and getting more and more. I mean, we work a lot in emerging markets where people are struggling with with TradFi. In Argentina, Nigeria, countries where TradFi fail on people, and they are reaching out to crypto. And the fact that we are bridging the gaps between TradFi, and because they still have to pay a rent, they still have to go buy their groceries, and that's it's part of their daily life. But the increased involvement of crypto in this at the forefront in these markets is the proof that the openness of crypto is really bringing a lot of value to these people. So 100%. I mean, for me, open finance is the best of both worlds that are combined into helping people in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, agree with a lot of what's been said here. I think one of the cool things about Wormhole is that since we're an interoperability protocol, we kind of work with everyone. So we sit in between. We work with Circle, we work with Superform, we can work with Axel too, right? Like we sit in between everything, and so we can kind of see all the different use cases that people are building and bringing on chain. And so I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think more concretely for Wormhole, we're really excited about bringing more asset issuers on chain, as I mentioned before, and we're really excited about building products that asset issuers and DeFi protocols can use to just make transferring assets across chain really, really easy. So that's building like native token transfers, which is our burn and mint protocol that a lot of asset issuers use. That's building intense protocols so that users and protocols and asset issuers can have really fast transfers across chains with good execution price. And so concretely, that means building more, better multi-chain products at Wormhole, but really excited about everything else that people mentioned here.
Okay, if you have time for maybe just one or two questions. No? Okay, yeah. You probably need the mic, I think. It's a bit soft.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. My name is Ivan from VFAT Tools. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this very interesting panel. I have 2 questions, actually. They're kind of interconnected. So in terms of Wormhole and cooperation between you, Circle, and Superform, when you were integrating initially, if there were any bottlenecks or challenges you had to face, and how you managed to overcome them, if any, and just for future projects which decide to integrate with you guys. And in terms of Wormhole, W token, what is the future for it? Because I hear a lot of things about building new products around the Wormhole ecosystem. So what is the role of W token, if any, besides staking and the governance? Thank you.
For the first question, I mean, I'd be curious to hear you guys what it was like integrating with Wormhole. We're always trying to make that experience better. But from our side, I mean, the way that we work with Circle, for example, is there's CCTP, which allows you to burn and mint tokens cross-chain and allows you to do really simple burn and mint transfers. When you pair that with Wormhole, you can pair that with an action. So you can send CCTP to another, or send USDC to another chain, and then swap or send USDC to another chain and deposit into a protocol. Yeah, awesome. That's great. And we're building some core protocols right now, the Wormhole contributors are, that are built on top of that integration. So it's a really core partnership for us. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on integrating Wormhole.
Yeah, very simple, very straightforward. I think building multi-chain apps is absolutely the future. From a user perspective, though, obviously there's a couple things that are constantly being improved. I think cost and speed of actually being multi-chain, always improving on. But the actual developer experience is something that I don't think it could get too much better, to be honest with you at this point.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to bottlenecks with integration, like we have the baseline protocol that a lot of apps integrate, and so oftentimes my team is on the kind of on the Circle's end, we're helping make that process as smooth and easy as we can. We do have what I would like to think is robust developer documentation and resources, and we try to point to applications of how people already use the protocol. But at the end of the day, I think when you're looking to integrate CCTP, you have 2 choices. You can integrate it directly, or you could go through something like Wormhole Connector, and essentially get a lot of other things with it that Nikhil touched on. And so we're seeing a lot of developers actually go that route, and I think that's great. Wormhole's been a great distribution partner for us in terms of really expanding upon the utility of CCTP. And so, yeah, I'd say when you're looking at bottlenecks and when you're looking at challenges of integration, I think you have to really get down to like what problem are you trying to solve, and does that start with coming to Circle, or does that start by integrating one of the apps that has CCTP within it? So I think we're seeing developers figure out which way to go there, and it's been cool to watch.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback, guys. That's exciting to hear. We love to hear that. And as to your second question, that's unfortunately not something I can comment on right now.
Awesome. We want to thank the panel, and we'll be moving on to our next keynote speaker.